Tonight I want to talk about a homily by Saint Isaac of Syria. He wrote 57 homilies, sermons, little talk. They're quite short. In the 12th century, no, actually earlier than that. These homilies, these sermons, proper readings, they were for hermits, for people living in stillness, in silence and prayer, not for us. But there is one of them which I think is very appropriate for us to at least to have a look at and see if I can explain it to you. That's this sermon 52. And the subject is Journey upon the Road of Faith. Journey upon the Road of Faith. He talks about the difference between human knowledge and faith. Now, usually by faith we mean what we believe. Veru vedingo bovotsa sedashitala. We have the creed, this is what we believe. He's not talking about that level of faith. He's not talking about belief in the resurrection, belief in the nativity, the incarnation. He's not talking about just something that we believe that the church teaches. He's talking about faith on a much higher level. In fact, it's on a level which I personally have never considered before. So this was quite a surprise to find this very, I think, approachable homily. Human knowledge, when we live by human knowledge, he has many names for it. He calls it human knowledge, he calls it bodily knowledge because it's to do with physical things. And he says that when you study or when you apply human knowledge, you have to investigate and examine. This is how it works. Think about it for a moment. In science, if you're discovering something new or you're testing things, you have to investigate and examine. This is a part of the process of this type of knowledge. It applies to music. You write a song or you compose a symphony, it doesn't matter what type of music it is, you have to examine it and study it. It's something physical. And again with art, again, it's investigation. You use how to use paint, how to use various media, whether you're working in stone as a sculptor or in paint or whatever sort of art. It covers everything that is a human activity. This is called human knowledge, or as St. Isaac also calls it, bodily knowledge, because it's something physical you can touch and we're involved in every day. So in that sense, human knowledge is based on reasoning. This is the main part of human knowledge. Yeah, if you go to work, wherever you work, you have to use your reason. That's why you're being employed, I hope. And in anything that we do, this is just a part of life. But this reasoning, unfortunately, is fallen, because it's based on our fallen nature. That's not necessarily saying that it's bad, but we need to be aware that it is not 100%. There's something wrong with it, and so we have to be careful. And it tends to dominate our mind, our intellect. Faith is not based on dogma, it's not based on teachings of the church. St. Isaac says it is a light that dawns in the soul. It's a light inside you. This is faith. So we're thinking about something which is not what we do, but what is given to us by God. I'll tell you one of my experiences, well, maybe the only one that's really important, is that I went on a vacation. This is 1967. Some of you weren't even born yet. I went on a vacation to Greece, package tour. I went down to the local Reisebureau. I was in Germany, and I bought myself a package trip to Athens for, I don't know, it's quite cheap. And I had no idea what I was going to be doing, but it was God did. And I went on this trip to Athens, and it was extremely hot. It was in August, which is the worst time to go. But I started visiting churches. I'd never seen a Byzantine church. I'd never seen an Orthodox church, ever. I can't even remember seeing any pictures. Maybe I've seen pictures of the Kremlin, St. Isaac's, St. Basil's Cathedral, Red Square, but about that I hadn't seen anything. And I went in these churches, and I was shocked by the beauty and the whole atmosphere. And I saw people, they were going on, they were actually kissing pieces of wood with paintings on them, which we call icons. And I thought this was very, very interesting. After a few days, and because I mentioned why it's hot is because it was too hot to walk about outside, so I kept going into churches. So I was being driven in, and I started venerating icons. It just felt the right thing to do. I never thought about what am I doing, or is this, whatever. But one of the churches that I visited was full of people, crowd, and it was small, and I went in through the door, and then people came in behind me, and they started moving forward. Well, if you've ever been in a Greek crowd, you know what I mean. Once they start moving, you go with it, okay, the flow. So I'm being pushed up to the front of the church. At the front of the church, it was actually end of the liturgy, but I didn't know anything like that. And I got to the front of the church, and there's an old priest, very old, and he's sitting on a chair. And he has some vasiliki and holy water, and he's blessing people. And he says to me, "Iste Orthodoxos?" And I answered, "Ne," which in Greek means yes, but in German means no. So he blessed me, and I came out after, and I thought, well, I suppose I'm Orthodox now. Okay, well, I'll leave it at that. 67. Later on, I was an Anglican, so I used to go to church and I sang in the choir. I was very serious about my faith. And I said to a priest that I knew in a different church, and I told him about my experience in Greece and church. He said, "Oh, there's an Orthodox church in London at a certain address." And so one Sunday I went, and I walked into the church during the liturgy. I didn't know it was a liturgy. I still didn't know anything. I didn't even read after this experience. I just, forgot about it. And I felt the presence of God. Absolutely real. And I think this is what St. Isaac is talking about, faith. It's a light inside you. You do not create it. You have to obviously live a life that's going to allow it to grow in you. Okay, you can't live a dissolute life, a bad life, and expect to have faith. No. But I think God touches each one of us individually. And that was my experience. I still remember it. I can never forget it. I can't explain it. That's how I know it's faith, because you can't explain it. Okay? So you try and write it down, you lose it. But there it was. So it's a light that dawns in the soul. And St. Isaac says, and I'll quote from him quite often now, faith is more subtle than knowledge. More subtle than knowledge. Just as knowledge is more subtle than palpable things. In other words, physical things. So faith is more subtle than knowledge, and knowledge is more subtle than physical things. It has to be, doesn't it? Because if you're using your brain or your intellect, you're thinking about things. You're not actually doing something physically necessarily, but we have thought. Animals have instinct. They're programmed to do what they do. Whatever animal, especially wild animals, they know what to do, this is what they do. They don't think about it, not the way that we can think. If you're walking through the forest, you can turn left or right because you feel like it. Animals don't do that, they're doing it for a purpose. So we have to use our minds, but it's expressed, put it this way, it's expressed through physical things that we do. Faith is divine knowledge, and it's more subtle than human knowledge. Human knowledge, physical knowledge, cannot learn without examining something, experimenting. But faith is childlike thought and a simple heart. Not childish, stupid, but childlike. This is very hard for us to reclaim, I would say, because when we're children we don't know any different, and so we have an innocence. But we soon lose it as we grow older, and especially with the experiences of life. The other thing about human knowledge, physical knowledge, it has to stay within the boundaries of nature. I'll give you an example. If you go up to Lake Washington and try and walk across the lake, you will sink. You will get wet. You can't prevent that. If you put your hand into a fire, you burn yourself. So there is a boundary. This is and our knowledge is bound by nature. But faith makes its journey above nature. Example. I've got a quote here from Isaiah. Well, I do somewhere, I can't find it at the moment. Okay, but what Isaiah says that you can walk through a fire and not be burnt. You can walk across the water and not sink. Isaiah says this. This is for a person of faith. A person of knowledge, thus human knowledge, bodily knowledge, will sink or be burnt. A person of faith will not be burnt, will not sink. Now that doesn't mean to say that, oh, I believe, therefore I'm going to go and walk on the water. No. We're talking about faith on a much higher level than what we think and what we believe. And this is what he's talking about. So, human knowledge works through matter. Faith, in the likeness, this is quite mind-blowing, in the likeness of God can make a new creation. When we have faith, this faith which is from God, not from ourselves, when we have that faith, we become like God. Everybody here in this room is made in the image of God, but we do not all have the likeness of God. We're not like God, otherwise we'd be saints, all right? But somebody who has the likeness of God can make a new creation. That's shocking. It means somebody of faith can actually make something out of nothing, like God does. And here he quotes actually from the book of Job, in which God says, I thought, therefore things came into being. We're talking about pure thought that can actually have an effect on physical things. Our Lord says, if you have faith, this faith that I'm talking about, you can move mountains. And we read that and we think, oh yeah, well that means you have a good, strong faith, that's good. It doesn't, it means what it says. It doesn't mean to say you should do it. You're not going to start, because that would be arrogance to start, creating things because we think we are God. But we have that potential in faith to be like God and therefore create things and make things out of nothing. So faith goes beyond nature. Not simply beyond nature, but it actually disobeys the laws of nature. And this is why saints, and you must know this from lives of saints, many saints have, as they prayed, have been above the ground. In other words, they have overcome gravity. How could St. John of Kronstadt be in two places at the same time? One serving the liturgy, the other one in Vladivostok or somewhere thousands of miles away at a bedside. Impossible on the level of human nature. It's not possible. The laws of science don't allow it. We're bound by gravity, we're bound by distance, we're bound by many things. But with faith, this faith from God, this gift, which is available to all of us, we can be in two places at the same time. This is not that we want to be. This is not science fiction. Okay, it's not time travel. You think of St. John, Shanghaiski, visiting somebody at night who was sick and leaving a $20 bill or whatever equivalent under their pillow. And the next morning they said, oh, St. John came last night. Well, Vladika came last night. No, he couldn't have done. Why? Because the hospital was locked. There's no way he could have got in. They lift up the pillow and underneath it is the $20 bill. It's called miracles. Closer to home, we have our own experience of miracles, mirror streaming miracles. We have that experience. The Hawaii icon. We had St. Nicholas icon. You remember, Leonard? Came to St. Nicholas. It was paper icon. And during the Maleben that we were serving, that myrrh began to stream down the shoulders. There was so much of it that we were catching it like that. Maybe put a bowl underneath it. It wasn't just a little trickle. It was pouring. What world does that belong to? It does not belong to the world of human knowledge. It belongs to the world of faith. And it seems to be very sad that theologians, Orthodox theologians, don't seem to know anything about this. Or they're embarrassed that the miracles can occur like this. It seems to me, certainly from some of the things that I've read, I understand what sort of faith they're talking about. So human knowledge also tries to protect us. This is more relevant to us. It tries to protect us, human knowledge, and so we take care of ourselves. It's not that we shouldn't look after ourselves, but we begin to worry. We're very worried about our health, our finances, and that we have to protect ourselves. So people take out insurance. I don't want to go into details because there's different things. There's different levels. Sometimes you have to anyway. You can't live, you can't get a mortgage if you don't have insurance. All right, that's simple as that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about this dependency on it. Now, how do we find the balance between faith, or to acquire faith, because I don't think we have it yet, and being restricted by human knowledge, which says you have to protect yourself, you have to eat certain foods, you've got to keep yourself healthy, all these things. Not that they're bad, but we become prisoners of it. We become slaves to human knowledge. And this is, I think, is a big downfall of some of intellectuals, especially Orthodox theologians, because they're bound up in their knowledge, their human knowledge, their expertise. So they cannot be like a child. Matushka was pointing out to me that Saint Porphyrius, Saint Paisius, Saint Jacobus of Evia had no education. They didn't go to high school. They didn't go to university. But if you read their lives, you realize that they are like Christ. They are like God in their lives. And they could work miracles. Amazing stories. I don't know whether these are true or not, but they're recorded. I mean, I don't know, because I'm still like you. You and I are bound by this human knowledge, and so we say, well, can this really be true, a miracle? We want to believe it, but, the world around us says, no, it can't be. Can't we be sensible? Because what's the difference between believing in miracles and being crazy? There's a risk you have to take. Am I crazy that I think these things? You're not crazy if you actually see it. There's somebody said that if you speak to God, this is normal. Actually, Einstein said this. He said, if you speak to God, that's quite normal. You're normal. But if God speaks to you, you're mad. Very deceptive. The next, there's human knowledge. I'm trying to sort of explain it to you, and I'm not really sure I'm very good at doing this actually. The next level is spiritual knowledge. Okay, so we have faith. We have faith and we have spiritual knowledge based on the virtues. We have physical approach to it through fasting, alms, giving alms, donations, helping people, prayers, and doing a life that is as holy as we can make it. This is spiritual knowledge. And through doing that, we begin to have a different perspective on human knowledge. It's a higher level, much higher level. And the physical side of it is actually fasting and giving alms and receiving prichastia. This is the physical side of spiritual knowledge. So we're moving up now. We've come from bodily knowledge, we're now at spiritual knowledge. There is also what St. Isaac calls knowledge of the soul. This is all in the same area, and he talks about love for one's neighbour, humility of heart, forgiveness, investigating. We're allowed to investigate on the spiritual level all the scriptures to see what we can understand from them. Not to analyse them, but to read them with faith, like we read the gospel and it has an effect on us. Sometimes we don't know what the effect is, but it definitely has an effect on us. So that the body is concerned, spiritual knowledge is with fasting and the physical things, prayers, pakloni, whatever, these are important. That's a part of it. And then the soul is concerned with love and humility and all the sort of spiritual things. So where's faith? What's happened to faith? It's on the next level. This is faith given by God, and it is actually the vision of God, communion with God, perfection. St. Isaac says that the body, bodily knowledge, because we have fallen nature, we are thinking, and our whole bodies are diseased spiritually. We have spiritual disease. And so when we start to work on a cure, we move into the realm of spiritual knowledge. So we have the church, we have Holy Communion, Prichastia, we have Ispoved, we have confession. This is all a part of the healing process. This belongs to spiritual knowledge. It does not belong to human knowledge. And I'm afraid I had to challenge that recently. I won't go into detail because this is going to be on YouTube. I don't want to be shut out. But it's an awareness that we have to understand that Ispoved and Prichastia, these things are mysteries. They are not on the level of bodily knowledge. They're not on the level of human knowledge. They're on the next level, which is spiritual. Therefore, you cannot apply philosophy, psychology, anything you like, onto things like confession and Holy Communion. I mean, there's some people would like to actually sort of analyse communion to see if it's changed, because this is, it's blasphemy, bizarre attitude towards things. And so faith is the next level, but it's a level that, as I say, is given by God. The home of faith is a childlike thought and a simple heart. That's how we acquire it. Childlike faith. Not childish, not stupid, but childlike, trusting and simple of heart. St. Paul says to the Colossians that we should serve God in the simplicity of our hearts, not by clever reasoning, amassing lots and lots of knowledge. No, we serve God through simplicity of heart. And as it says in St. Matthew's Gospel, unless you become as little children, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. There's no argument there. It's absolutely straightforward. Unless you become as little children, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. What does it mean to be like little children? Well, it doesn't mean to run around and play with toys. It doesn't mean to go back to your children. as I said, human knowledge has to stay within the boundaries of its own world, its own limits of nature. And what happens, unfortunately, is that we have faith on the spiritual level, and then we fall, we give up, we think, oh, God can't possibly look after me. You know? Can't possibly. You know, how's God going to help me with bills, health, whatever it is, doesn't matter, relationships? How can God help me? You know, you have children that are a disappointment to you, you know, and what can you do? I don't think God can help. So we try and work out other means of solving the problem. And when we do that, then we drop down from the spiritual knowledge to the human knowledge. And we become afraid, angry, anxious, and all these stressful things that are in our lives is because we do not trust God. The moment we begin to trust God, we move back up again. And hopefully, if we can acquire simplicity of heart, then we will be given that faith, the faith that allows us to walk on water and move through fire and even create new things.